So after all the work I've put in making and trying to finish my independent feature film Gardener's Planet, why then would I throw so much of that work away and start again? Well, if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know every time I was near the finish line on this film, something else came up. So it probably won't be too much of a surprise for you to hear that the journey of the grade was no different. So of course, inevitably, it was only after we had our cast and crew screening 4 months ago that I walked away feeling something didn't look quite right. So in this video I want to tell you where I went wrong and how I've tried to correct it. But before I get too deep into this, and just in case this is your first time on this channel, then I need to tell you this isn't going to be just another talking about film bedroom YouTube channel. It's a practical, real world filming YouTube channel. And I'm a real filmmaker talking about real independent film work. And the film I'm talking about, Gardener's Planet, is an independent science fiction feature film comedy about a TV gardener who discovers the people whose garden he's working on are actually aliens from another planet and he has to stop them before it's too late. And this channel is about independent filmmaking, the mistakes I've made and the lessons I've learned along the way. And I am really so close to finishing this goddamn movie now. The last video I made in this series on the making of this film was about me boxing up the film and putting on a new hard drive that I bought. And you can check out the hard drive video here if you haven't seen it. So I guess I do actually feel that I'm taking a step back with the making of this video, but it's only because, you know, I've been putting this video off for a long time because it just contains so many mistakes that I've made. But if I'm honest about trying to make this YouTube channel a channel about honest filmmaking, then I shouldn't hold back. Okay, so just to explain visually or more clearly what I'm talking about, I decided to do a quick demonstration because the problem with the grade originated with a problem in the color temperature. Most films, as you can see here, are the standard white light color temperature is 5600 and the light which is actually set to 5600 here, and it's locked at 5600. The aperture D, you can't change that. But the error I made in block 1 of shooting in Gardener's Planet, I actually shot at 4400. This is where the problem started, because when you've a light at 5600 and the camera is set to 4400, you have a discrepancy there between the two color temperatures, obviously by about 1000 degrees. So you can see the difference here in the wide shot at 5600 on the left, and on the right 4450, and it wasn't that clear in the wide shot, so I decided just to do another example here to make it more clear, because when you have this discrepancy, it's very hard to clean it in post. Even when you're shooting on RAW, you've got some fundamental inbuilt issues, and the issues are primarily on the skin. You can see on the image on the right here just how off the skin is when you have this discrepancy and the kind of burn effect it has on the skin, where when you compare it to the correct image on the left, the image on the right has you know, a hue of purple about it. After color correction, obviously, where I injected some orange into it to try and balance it out. But if you turn off the light and you just film with daylight, there's not a major difference after color correction, because you can inject orange and you don't have any discrepancy with the light on the skin. But you can see here just how wrong it is here and how off the skin is. There's more kind of reds and purples, and you've lost those kind of natural orange tones, orangey, creamy, yellow tones, which you do want on the skin. Okay, so in partnership with this color temperature error, I was using the Leeming LUT, and Paul Leeming, the guy who created the LUT, says you do have to expose to the left to use the LUT correctly, so let in more light than you might otherwise naturally do. But I did have the LUT loaded up on the Blackmagic camera, the camera we're filming on now, so I could toggle that on and off, and that really wasn't an issue. But I was using this LUT only half correctly, and in fact, if I'm being honest, I was using it more wrong than right. Yeah, and for a long time then, I just thought I was stuck with this color temperature error, and these scenes were always going to look that way. I wasn't happy about it, but I had accepted it. Okay, so this is one of the shots in my independent feature film Gardener's Planet that really suffered with this color temperature issue from block 1. So the aperture light is on 5600 off on the left, and it's quite close to Sean, the actor Sean Donegan here, the actor on the left, and you can really see on his face, less so than Michael on the right, you can really see on Sean Donegan's face the red hues, and you can see here in the graph just how much of the image has tilted into the red area. and also the chainsaw, as well as his skin tones on his face. Also, the chainsaw has been pushed into that from what is an orange chainsaw into a very harsh orange kind of shade. So what's happening is the foreground is very warm, way too warm, and the background is way too cold. Not way too cold, but it's colder than it should be if we shot at 5600. And you can see here the settings on the right, just what I changed. So I brought it up by 15.5, and if I bring it down again just to 0, you can see how blue it is. And so you're bringing it up, and that's what it was at, just to try and now that's more than, so if we're at 15, we'll leave it at 15. But that's where we were at for a long time with the grade. But actually the mistake I was making around this time after wrapping block 1 was that I was applying the LUT and then trying to fix the color temperature issue. But if you do this, apply the LUT and then jack up the orange to try and compensate for the amount of blue you've allowed into the frame, then you can actually really ruin your image pretty fast. So once I realized this and I began correcting it, it of course made a massive difference to the images. And then it was this grade that we showed at our cast and crew screening. And the cast and crew screening was really great. I had a fun time, and it was so great to see so many people who worked on the film who I hadn't seen in a long time. And after all the work we'd put into the film, it was great just to have a night out to celebrate how amazing we all are. But in saying that, I can understand if you're watching this video and if you're a colouring expert, you might be kind of cringing. But you have to understand, Gardener's Planet, we were dealing with so many challenges and there was a lot to overcome, and the grade was the least of those issues. Like, we went from practical aliens to CGI aliens, so that was a huge kind of obstacle to go overcome in the making of this. And for a long time, yeah, the grade just had to take a back seat. But when we did do the cast and crew screening, I was kind of happy with the grade. And at that time, last November, I did actually think the grade might be finished. But I was wrong. So basically the journey of this film has been a journey of upskilling. And by the time that we got the cast and crew screening done and out of the way, I felt like I was in a comfortable enough position where I'd solved so many of the other problems we had with the film, and we did have a lot of problems with the film, but I felt I'd solved enough of them now that I was ready to go back and take another look at the grade and really try and nail it this time. So the more I began to look into it around this time, the more I finally began to realise just how much I was doing wrong. I was using the Leaming LUT as a styling LUT, thinking, oh, this looks cool, but it wasn't designed for that at all. The Leaming LUT is just designed to return you from a raw image, which I was shooting on the Blackmagic, to a Rec 709 image. And the Rec 709 image is really just a standard colour space. It's a neutral, accurate baseline from which you can then go and put on your style and tone and shape and craft the film the way you kind of had it in your mind's eye. But you have to start with that neutral, accurate baseline, and I didn't understand that, and I didn't really, if I'm even being honest, understand what a Rec 709 image was at this time. Okay, and a great way to analyse that baseline is just really to focus on the skin tones, and that's really something I've tried to do in this second grade, or third grade, but who's keeping track now. This is a shot from block 2, so we didn't have the colour temperature issue, but it's just interesting to have a look at the skin tones here and see how we want to analyse them. These are some of the settings here I've got on the right, and there we go down to curves, and then we'll just zoom in here and we'll have a look at the skin tones on Sean Donegan's face and just see how they look. Because the skin tones have to be accurate, you know, they can't be wrong, because if they feel false, if they feel off, the whole movie's gonna feel off. And you can have a stylish film, but you still have to have an accurate baseline, and just the skin tones are a great way of measuring that. So I've just created a mask around the skin and highlighted the clip, and we can see here on the graph on the right that it is a little bit red actually, so it's just a little bit above the red, it's a little bit above the line. The white line is exactly where the skin tones should be, so if I bring down the red tones, you can see that red comes back down to the white line, which is where it should be. Okay, and this is another shot which is from block 1 and was affected by the color temperature issue. Let's just have a look at that. I've brought it into a separate timeline here just so we can have a look at it. And if we go, that's just the extra LUT I have, the style LUT, something called Kodak Vision. That's with it on, that's with it off. So it's just crushing a little bit of the colours, I guess, somewhat. So if we go down to curves anyway, I have my little curve there. But if we turn off the red thing, you can just see the correction here and how much difference it makes, how unflattering it is to the actor to have that horrible red tone. Really, really horrible, and I don't know what you'd call it, but it's just a burn from probably, again, the aperture pretty close by. And if we draw a mask around the skin, we'll just see how far off the skin tones are from where they accurately should be. So you can see here they're way above the red, you know, and that's with it off, that's with it on. So in theory it should be down even a little bit more just to get it onto that white line. But when it was off, you know, it's off by a huge amount, which is really frustrating. So, you know, having to go in and make that kind of surgical change is frustrating, but extremely necessary. It's just, you can see again just how just extremely unflattering it is, and you get that really magenta purple all over there. You can't bring it down too much because you kind of go into the greens, and you don't want to inject green either, but you have to be careful. So much of working with imagery is just learning to train your eyes, you know. You can look at an image and you might sense something is wrong with the skin tones, with the color temperature or whatever, but to actually know what's wrong does take a bit of education. And then to take it a step further and step in and fix what's wrong in an accurate way, that does take a bit of experience. So I'm trying to build up that experience and trying to improve my work as I go, I guess. Okay, so cool. Hope that was an interesting video, bit of information for you. Degrading is something that I didn't know a lot about, but I've learned so much about it just by applying myself to it and learning from it. One of the underlying themes of making this film is that I probably did take on too much myself. You know, being the writer, director, producer, cinematographer, first AD, it did somewhat probably compromise the final product because you're spreading your skills across so many departments. And it's not like I don't want other people coming on board and helping me, and we did have some fantastic people working on the film. But, you know, the people who I want to bring on, I want to be able to pay them, you know, for their time and skills. And until I'm in a position to be able to pay for their time and their skills, I'm happy just to, you know, upskill myself and learn from my mistakes and share those mistakes as well. You know, I don't feel too self-conscious about it at all. But I am aware that I do want to bring more people into the projects in the future to make those projects as good as they can, because of course the goal is to make projects as the best you can make them. But in saying that, I'm not chasing technical perfection either, you know, not by a long way. Like I was watching the Paul McCartney documentary the other night, Man on the Run, and it talked about how his solo efforts after the Beatles, and it was talking about, you know, the McCartney solo album and Ram, and they were amazing. You know, he just recorded all the instruments himself, and he made a really cool lo-fi kind of homemade album on both those albums. And it was put down at the time, you know, as you know, as lame or kind of cringe. But now it's seen as, you know, a cool indie pop masterpiece, especially the Ram album, which I love. You know, it opens with just the sound of his back door opening or closing, and I love that. I think that's really cool. So, you know, I'm not chasing technical perfection. I'm chasing strong technical competence. But, you know, the emphasis has to be on storytelling. I mean, the idea of chasing technical perfection in the era of AI is probably crazy anyway. But, you know, what interests me more is, you know, finding a balance between technical competence and also, you know, homemade films, for want of a better word. You know, films which are crafted by a person and not a corporation. That's really what I want to make in the future. So yeah, finding a balance between that is something I want to do. In saying that, you know, the missing thing that's been missing from this video is DaVinci Resolve. I don't know DaVinci Resolve. I have to learn it. And maybe this summer, maybe that's something I could do, learn DaVinci Resolve. I was thinking maybe I could do a couple of live streams this summer. I have one big project that I'll be talking about soon, but maybe the mini project to go along with that could be DaVinci Resolve. And do a couple of live streams. That would be cool, I think. You know, that's something for me to think about in the future. Okay, so that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. So yeah, I hope this helped you if you're working with cameras, imagery, or colors. I definitely do feel a bit embarrassed about putting myself out there and all the mistakes I've made. But A, that's the only way I'm going to learn, by honesty. And I really am serious about trying to make this a grounded and practical and honest YouTube channel. So yeah, here's to the future. So anyway, if you found any of this entertaining, interesting, or just vaguely educational, then you might consider liking and subscribing, and I'll be back with another video from the world of independent filmmaking very soon.